Hello all! Today I'm going to be doing an unboxing, or I should say re-unboxing, of The Lamps Are Going Out World War One from Compass Games. Now, Compass Games are becoming known for their World War One games. They have this one that came out a few years ago. They also have one that just came out, Attrition of Souls, which has a different take on World War One, and I know they have several other World War One type games, so they're starting to become the World War One, at least from a strategic level, go-to source. So why did I pick this one up, and why is it a re-unboxing? Well, it's a re-unboxing because I bought it from my friendly local gaming store, Changing Hand Bookshops in Joplin. There's a shout out for you. And it was used, but it's really not used. It's unpunched. I don't even think it's really never been used, except for some of they sleeve the cards, and I'll show you that. So I thought this was worthwhile to at least show you what's in the box, because it's relatively unchanged what's in the box. Another reason why I kind of wanted to pull this game out is, I'm doing an exploration on strategic level games. I've done some on the Napoleonic Wars and the Civil War, and I like to do one on World War One. And as I was looking at my games, I realized I don't have a lot of strategic level World War One games. Among some of the titles that I have are the Guns of August, my original World War One strategic level game, and this is a very traditional hex and counter game that really kind of recreates the attrition and slog of World War One. And this is, Avalon Hill Games put out, I believe, I got it in the 80s. So I'm not going to go into my full exploration now, but, that's the one I've had for years and have played this a lot as far as World War One is concerned. Then I got Paths of Glory, and kind of pushed Guns of August to the side a little bit, because this is a really good game. This is card-driven, point-to-point, Ted Racier masterpiece of a game, very well done. There's arguments on whether how historical it is, but it's definitely very playable, and a very good game. Again, don't want to spoil an exploration that I'll probably do after I've gotten The Lamps Are Going Out to the table a little bit more. So Lamps Going Out is not a hex encounter like Guns of August. It's not card-driven point-to-point like Paths of Glory. It's something totally different. It's more of a area movement game, and has some very simplified combat procedures that really, you can argue whether how historical it is, but gives you that feel of, when you attack, it's going to hurt you as much as it's going to hurt the other side. So it does recreate some of that slog of World War One. But with that, let's get into the box and take a look at this. So inside the box, you have the dice. I don't know if these were the original dice or not, but these are nice dice. Don't know if they're the original ones, but you get 4 dice in the original in the original purchase of this. Now there is a second edition coming out with this. I don't think it is. I don't think it changes the game dramatically. I believe it's probably just adding some errata. At least I hope it doesn't change it dramatically, because then I'm going to feel compelled to maybe have to look at that as well. But, I've been looking at a lot of YouTube and other sources on this game, and this just sounded interesting and looked a lot. It looked like it covered World War One at a strategic level very differently than Guns of August or Paths of Glory, my other 2 main games on that subject. And so I wanted to try it out. The other thing you get in the box is, you don't get this tucked box. This was made by the previous owner. And this is about as extent of how far he got, is just he sleeved the cards. Sleeved the cards, made a tucked box, and that's it. So this is card assisted. It's not card driven. The cards are event cards. So you basically have 2 types of cards. You have event cards that you're going to get certain number of those based on the year, and then later on in the game, some of these cards will come into play, and this is when you can play it, the earliest you can play it, and you just keep building more cards over time, and then you can play more based on what the date qualifier is. So you have event cards for the different players. You have the Eastern Allies, the Western Allies, the Central Powers, and the central allies, okay? But you also have technology cards. There's 2 sets of technology cards, and this is a little bit different. You know, at the end of your turn, you get to draw a technology card, and the technology card is going to be based, if you draw an A1, great, you can use that. But if you draw the A3 and you don't have the A1 down yet, well, this is a failed attempt. I mean, this you don't get any technology that turn. So, and this gets shuffled back in the deck, and then you try again. So you got to get all the 1s before you get the, before the 2s and before you get the 3s. So that's how technology is done. There's 10 cards for each side, for the 2 main opposing sides in the game. There's technology, and it's the technology of the time. There's heavy artillery, there's tanks, which tanks came in late in the war. The aircraft, aircrafts were a new introduction to the war. Poison gas. So, it's got all the different types of technology that's specific to World War I. And again, that's something a little bit different than what's portrayed in the other games that I have on the subject. And the events, again, are not, as I said, don't drive the game. Oh, that's a technology card. But they have effects that you have to meet the date qualifier, and then they have effects that you apply. So let's look inside. You get the rules, and there's 36 pages, and then it looks like it has a sample play at the back here. So the 36 pages. I don't think I'd get too worried about this as overly complex, even with 62 pages. Because here's a solitaire multiplayer. So there's 24 pages of, looks like, main rules. And again, this game is not that complicated. It's not necessarily introductory, but it's not super complicated. So you got full color rules, very nicely done. And there you have it. That's the rules. Then you have 1 counter sheet. So there's like 176 counters. And you can see, there's not even numbers. So it's not your typical, I got attack and I got movement, or I got defense, or cohesion, or whatever you have you on there. They're just counters. And so you have the counter, that's when it's ready. And then if you use it, or if it gets kind of a loss, then it's spent. And whenever you attack, the attacker is always going to be spent. So you have to have a ready or fresh troop. When you attack, you're going to flip. The attacker's always going to be flipped over, and then if you've got a hit, then the defender will be flipped over. And then if the defender is, if the defender has to take a loss and they have no fresh troops, they're only spent, then they have to retreat. Then you get to move in and take over the territory. So again, not that complex. And also in combat, that if you get if you have a success, then you get this. The Germans, if you're the Germans, you get a success and you get this counter here, which gives you a +1 on attacks. And then the Allies have the same thing. They get a +1 on their attacks. And that just adds you to the die roll. And the die roll is really simple. I mean, you roll the dice, and if this is the Germans and this is the Allies, well, guess what? 6 beats 1. You get a hit. Wow, that's it. No combat charts, no tables, no mess, no fuss, no complexity there. So, there's other issues or things that kind of pop into the game. There is some, potential other modifiers, especially based on your technology, but that is the basics of it. Okay, so that's your counter sheet. Again, 1 counter sheet. Then then you get several player aids in the game. There's the back of the box there. So the player aids are set up where you get the setup. So you get your setup, the Triple Entente, and then the Eastern Allies, and then the United States. Eastern Allies. The United States and Eastern Allies are kind of put together. It's kind of a different way, but that's more of how the turn flow goes. And then you have your Central Powers Alliance. So this is the setup. All the setups are basically the same. This is how you set up the game. Then on the back, once you set it up, you flip it over. So the Triple Entente player has this chart, which is going to give them their sequence of play, a quick rules reference. So you go back to the book, production points. It's a strategic game, so there's going to be production, and it's pretty easy. Each of the areas have, this is the air, like the British Isles gives you 4 production, and so on. If you lose an area, the other side doesn't get the production, it just denies you from getting that production. So That's how production is set out. You have a U-boat attacks. There is naval combat. Again, it's somewhat abstracted, but there is some naval combat. And you have a U-boat element as well, as far as kind of whether you're going to do unrestricted warfare or follow the rules, so what they may be. Your production cost to build new units or to refit units. Refitting is flipping a card from spent to fresh. Raising units. And then you have a place to hold your markers. Limited units, special combat units. You can kind of use this as a holding bay for your units. And then, of course, you have event markers from your counter sheet on there as well. So do your setup, flip it over. Now you have a player aid. And that's for the triple entente. This is for the central powers. So you've got that. And then you've got central powers. And then you've got triple entente. Okay. So there you have that. That's your player aids. Then you got your map. As I said, the map is not your hex encounter, not point to point. It's area movement. So and there's a production area. So this is where you would move. You'd move from, you attack like from Hanover to Belgium. If you're able to make those units retreat, then they retreat, and then you move into Belgium, and you have Belgium now. If you move into the Somme, you don't get that one production point, but you deny that one production point from France in that case. Movement's pretty simple. You can move 2 units a turn. That's it, just 2 units. But you can move them as far as you want, as long as you're going through friendly areas. So I can move something from Posen all the way to the Rhine, but I can only move 2 units. Okay, and so here's your submarine warfare boxes. Then you have a blockade. This is where some of the naval warfare is kind of played out. Then you also have East Africa area, and I think at the end of the game, if whoever controls this might get 1 victory point. So basically, you have the Germans fighting the British in East Africa, and then of course you have a area for the Middle East. So Allenby, and I think there's a counter for Allenby, but I don't think there's one for Lawrence of Arabia, but he was under Allenby. So here's your Middle East, and I guess so Turkey's in here. Then I guess there's a chance for Turkey to go up through Russia and be a little bit of a sore spot for the Eastern allies there. And then you have your track here. Here's your turn track, and then you have a U.S. declares war track, and basically there's cards that modify when the U.S. comes in. Don't see one, of course, when I draw it up here, I don't see one right off the bat, but it will say something like move up on the U.S. track, like here, U.S. entry track right here, +2. So you'd move that up on the track. And then once you get to the end of that track, the U.S. is going to declare war and then come in the game. So there you have it. Not overly complex. Not as many counters as you would have in Guns of August. It has cards, but no point-to-point, and not as complex as Paths of Glory in that regard. Combat, again, is relatively simple. 4-3. But if I had that +1, then it'd be 4-4. And I believe I got to look that up. I'm not sure if the attacker or the defender gets the tie on that. That's something I got to look up there. But anyway, this is a re-unboxing of The Lamps Are Going Out. I thought it would be worthwhile, since it's really pretty much what you get in the box, except for the sleeving of the cards. You got to get your own sleeves, got to sleeve your own cards. That you do not get in the regular game. But that is The Lamps Are Going Out, World War I. If you like this, please like it. If you want more of this stuff, please subscribe. Click on the bell, get some notice on when the next thing I'm doing something. But I really love your comments. What do you think about this game? What don't you like about this game? What do you like about other strategic level World War I games? What am I missing out there? There are some offerings that are much, much better. Again, I know that Compass is coming out with Attrition of Souls, which is different than any of these 3. It's got area kind of like this, but it's got boxes. This is kind of reminiscent of Mark Herman's Pericles, but it doesn't really, I don't think it has that political side. Pericles is more of a politics game, and then translates to what those orders look like on the battlefield through these boxes. But this one has, Attrition of Souls has boxes, and uses counters in those boxes. And I think it has a relatively simplified, not maybe as simplified as this, but a simplified combat system as well. Interested in maybe looking at that one. Again, I think Compass has some more out there on World War One at the strategic level as well. So they're becoming the World War One leader in that regard. So if there's other really good games out there. I know there's some other older games like I guess 1914 and the Great War, which I played, I think, a print and play version of the Great War at one time, but I know it's boxed now by one. I think it's by one small step. That's a relatively, I think, innovative and kind of simplified game. For some reason, that reminds me of this game, or this game reminds me of that game, however you want to look at it. Anyway, like, subscribe, comment. Hope this was helpful. Thanks.